of 10:31 a.m. Now, everybody, please rise. Vice Speaker Singh, please lead us in prayer.
Let us place ourselves in the holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, thank you for bringing us together today. Let us make the right decisions. Guide us in all that we do during the session. Thank you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Vice Speaker Singh, please lead us in the recitation of the Nefresi.
Giren imas takulo gi hinasoko. Imas takulum gi kurasonhu. Zani mastigo naninya sunyahu.
Ufresin maisizo. Parabai protehi. Zandifendi. Ihinengi. Ikotura. Ilinguahi. Iairi. Ihanum. Zanitanuk samoro. Niren shakku diretsu. Gustata. Esti huafitma. Kihilo i Biblia, Sandi Banderal, Banderan, Guahan. Representative Madam Busen, you please lead us in the singing of the Guam hymn. Representative Busen is singing of the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the Thank you. All to be seated. Mr. Secretary, could you please lead us in a roll call?
Representative Bourjwani, Representative Booty, Representative Iriarty, Representative Jacosalem, Representative Jimenez, Representative Katsura, Representative Cooper, Representative Lanuza, Representative Manibusan, present. Representative Orsini, Speaker.
Esteguizo.
Vice Speaker Orsini,
Esteguizo.
Representative Kanata, Representative Quinley, Representative Kitogwa, Representative Butch Rubio, Representative Cara Rubio, Representative Salile, Representative Santos, Representative Sevilla, Representative Shelton, Representative Shin, Representative Wang. Representative Kenga. Representative Adele. Representative Lilly. Speaker, we have quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now I'll move on to the next session of the agenda on motions. Are there any? Representative Kenga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, without any objections from the body, I'd like to move into the committee on whole.
Are there any objections? We now move to committee of a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, first order of business as committee to the first reading file to the introduction of bill number 22, relative to the reorganization of the Guam Youth Congress. So what we'll do, we'll go by each section of the bill. And again, is there a motion to place bill number 22 into the second reading file for discussion and debate?
I'd like to move the bill number 22 to the second reading file for discussion and debate.
Any objections? So bill number 22, relative to the reorganization of the Guam Youth Congress. Repealer and reenactment of Chapter 7 of the Guam Code annotated is hereby repealed and reenacted to read as follows. Chapter 7, known as the Guam Youth Legislature. Subsection 7101 of the Guam Youth Legislature. There is within the legislative branch of the government of Guam a Guam Youth Legislature. Subsection 7102 of functions. The Youth Legislature shall act as a legislative body with the power to make its own rules, establish committees, hold hearings, pass resolutions, and to prepare and pass bills, which will be forwarded to the Rules Committee of the Guam Legislature for action as with a legislative bill. The Youth Legislature will represent the youth of Guam, their desires and aspirations, and will serve as a training and action area for Guam's future leaders. The Youth Legislature shall hold a youth conference at least once a year to report and discuss essential matters pertaining to the youth. Again, my colleagues, while reading through this, any one of you can raise your hand and you'll be addressed if you want to make amendments, or again, floor is still open for discussion and debate on any matters of this as we go through it. Subsection 7103, membership. The Youth Legislature shall be composed of not to exceed 25 members, to be known as youth senators, to be elected from the areas listed below. Village representation. 1 youth senator from each organized village with a population below 5,000, 2 youth senators for each village with a population between 5,000 and 10,000, 3 youth senators from each village over 10,000 population. Number 2, school representation. 3 youth senators from the University of Guam and 3 youth senators from the Guam Community College. Representative Wang, you are recognized.
I just want to know the reason why we're having the same number of members from both UOG and GCC, because there are more students at UOG than GCC, and for the membership for the villages, it said that only 1 senator from a village with under 5,000 people, and there's less than 5,000 students at UOG. So I want to know the reason why that is the case.
I think the author intended it for, because the UOG, on your first question about why GCC has the same amount as UOG, is that your first question? In doing so, that both UOG and GCC sort of act as hubs for majority of the youth that do stay on the island. If you would like to make an amendment to change GCC from UOG or what have you, you may do so. But I think the author did intend it's just more so to, because again, every village has the opportunity to get at least 3 seats. But that's only depending if their population is over 10,000. So again, it's just giving UOG and GCC automatically 3 seats just ensures that there's not, I guess, the mix up on exactly how much each school will automatically get. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to know, are high schools considered to be hubs for youth, for the youth population on Guam? Like, we're talking about UOG being considered to be a hub for the youth. Are high schools also considered to be a hub for the youth?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Then why aren't we allowing the high schoolers to also receive their own representation in the
President Kinga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very good point pointed out by Representative Booty. Talking about why the high schools aren't included versus the college students at the university and at the Guam Community College. Maybe a point that we could come across with is we're trying to encourage the youth within the high schools to go into their villages and focus their attention there. Not that high schools aren't hubs, because they are, but rather where we're going to select our representatives to the Youth Congress. So I think it's a good point if the fellow representative would like to introduce an amendment, but I guess to agree with the speaker, in order to get our youth, I mean, the university mindset is different from a high school mindset. So what the intent of the bill, hopefully, correct me if I'm wrong, is to encourage our youth that are still in high school to represent their villages and look at ways in which they can improve their village or their region as a whole, rather than just their school district. Because with the high schools, they're almost taken care of automatically. They have their own department, they have their own budget, they work as students, they have their student body. Versus the village, there's not much organization there. And I think because of the lack thereof, we need to encourage our students to go to the village and help out, besides just school. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Vice Speaker Simi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That was a good point Representative Booty did bring up. I believe if there are other concerns regarding the high schools, there is IBOGs, in Island Board of Governing Students, that do focus on governing within the high schools any policy procedures or any concerns the students within the public schools have, and also I believe private schools. So I like the amendment here, focusing within the village, because as Speaker Kinga said, that we do need more organization in the villages, and we need to expose ourselves and get to know the people within our region. and represent them better. So instead of just focusing on a school, I think it's a very good idea that we represent all schools and expand that way. Thank you.
Representative Booty, you're recognized.
I'd like to introduce an amendment actually for section 2 in terms of school representation. Instead of allowing UOG and GCC 3 seats each, I'd rather have it that all schools, including UOG and GCC and all the high schools in Guam, that their student council presidents are allowed to attend session instead of, I believe now the rules that they need to come at session, a committee on a whole, right? I'm not sure if I'm mistaken there.
For presidents of schools?
No, in order to address the Youth Congress, people would need to
Be in committee.
I'd like to see it that the presidents of the schools would be allowed to come to attend session, but act in a non-voting role, such as right now we see it in the U.S. Congress. Our own representative, Congresswoman Bordalio, is allowed to attend session. She's allowed to have her input, but she's not allowed to vote. I feel that would be a better way to allow also the high schoolers and UOG and GCC to come forward with their own concerns.
Representative Kanga, you're recognized.
Representative Booty, I agree with your motion. Maybe if I could, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment. Whereas the University and Guam Community College students would not be involved with this movement, I think we should allow for high school class presidents to get involved with Youth Congress. So we'll say that each class president at the high school would be a ex officio non-voting member of the Congress, in which they're allowed privilege of the floor and the right to speak, but that the university and the Guam Community College maintain their voting status and are able to select their representative. I'm willing to concede, seeing as if the villages are held to a higher standard. If we want, we could allow that the University of Guam shall elect 2 representatives and the Guam Community College shall elect 1 to represent their campuses.
So is that your amendment? Would you like to restate that
That's
again?
my amendment to his amendment.
The amendment to Representative Booty's amendment is to strike out both A and B for UOG and GCC, for UOG to have 2 youth senator seats and for GCC to have 1. Is that your amendment?
Correct. And then to add, after line 22, to add a number 3, ex officio non-voting members.
Okay.
Okay.
And then your other amendment is to add a section
Line,
C,
yes, actually number 3.
number 3. Okay.
Ex officio, the header would be ex officio non-voting members, and that under that section, we allow for each school 1 representative to be decided by their student body, either as their student body president or their class president, to sit as a non-voting ex officio member. All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to toss it back to Representative Booty for his thoughts.
I still have issues with UOG having 2 seats while the student population at UOG is still smaller than that of it's smaller than what it says for a single, just start again. Just in the bill it says that villages with less than 5,000 people have 1 seat, essentially. And UOG, if we're going to consider it to be a village, it has 3,550 undergraduate students, I believe, and then 3,770 students in total. So yeah, I don't see what merits UOG to deserve 2 seats, while a village that has less than 5,000 only deserves 1. Second thing, I'm not sure about the wording ex officio, because when I thought of the amendment, would they still be entitled to stipends? I feel that they wouldn't, yeah. And third thing, I agree with you there. Third thing, I think we should immediately now state that it has to be the student body, not the class presidents, because then you'd have like 4
Right.
per school coming.
Okay.
Then if you just immediately put a foot down and say student body presidents.
Mr. Speaker, to answer, and I'm glad you pointed that question, coming from the university, what we're seeing is that we're expecting an increase of student population between 10 to 15% every semester. So about 30% every school year. Take into consideration we have about 3,700 students, and add 30% on top of that every year. By the time this bill takes into effect, and if it does pass, we're not going to see the same amount of students as what this bill intended to have. So in a sense, maybe if we could project that we might have well over 6,000 students at the university by the time this bill takes into effect. And that would more than likely accommodate the responsiveness for Section 2 in regards to the 5,000 population. So if we could concede on that point, I know it's wishful thinking, but it's backed by statistics. If we're seeing an increase in enrollment, then I'm pretty sure we're going to have that 5,000 threshold met within a year.
I'm sorry. Mr. Secretary, please note that Representative Hills is in attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And Mr. Speaker, if I could, knowing exactly what Representative Booty was asking for this one, I would like to withdraw my amendment to the amendment and propose a new one with the changes we've just discussed. And Representative Booty?
There's a motion to withdraw Representative Kenga's amendment to Representative Booty's amendment. Are there any objections?
No objections. And Representative Booty, fortunately, you're not hearing me ask for 3 at UOG and 2 at GCC. So, if I could, Mr. Speaker, on that amendment, to maintain that under school representation, that there be 2 youths to serve from the University of Guam, and letter B to strike out the word and the number 3, replace it with 1 for the Guam Community College. And for the third section, that the student body association president at each of the high school serve as an ex officio non-voting member with no privilege to stipend as provided to regular members of the Youth Congress.
Did you say with the exception of a stipend or no?
In layman's terms, they wouldn't be available to the stipend.
Okay.
And I can ask if my colleagues, most especially to Representative Booty, for his support on the amendment to the amendment.
So now, is anybody else who would like to introduce an amendment? We now move on to first to Representative Kenga's amendment, to Representative Booty's amendment. On Representative Kenga's amendment, we'll do a hand vote. All those in favor of Representative Kenga's amendment, please do so by raising your right hand. Mr. Secretary. 1, 2, 3, 6. Can you please get a number, Mr. Secretary?
Mr. Speaker, we have 7 yeas for for Representative Kenga's amendment.
And how many, does it pass or not?
Representative Kenga's amendment does pass with majority votes.
Representative Kanga's amendment passes. Now on to Representative Booty's amendment, which is to add a new section of ex officio non-voting members for each school to place a representative to sit as a non-official member, non-voting member, and non-payable towards stipends. So now on Representative Booty's amendment, all those in favor, please do so by raising your right hand. Representative Booty's amendment passes unanimously. We are still at subsection 7103 of membership. Are there any other speakers? There being none, we move on. Subsection 7104, eligibility of representatives and electorate. No person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator or sit in the youth legislature who has not attained the age of 16 years or who will be 25 prior to the expiration of the term for which he seeks to qualify as a voter or as a member, who has been convicted of a felony or crime involving moral turpitude and has not received a pardon restoring his civil rights. Are there any other speakers on this section? Representative Hills, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I'd like to appreciate my thanks for recognizing me here, even though I came late, and I appreciate that you are allowing me to be on the roll call. On perspective to subsection 7104 of the proposed legislation, Mr. Speaker, my only concern is to accommodate, in the high school level, is to accommodate the incoming freshmen. I understand that the age determined is at the age of 16. However, there are individuals that are incoming freshmen that are at age 14 and 15. And I want to know if there is any way that this body can also be inclusive of freshmen, because when you attain the age of 16, that's already going into your sophomore year. So to be exclusive of freshmen in the high school level, I don't want to put barriers with this body towards those constituents, because in the high school level, they are our responsibility and we do represent them in the Guam Code annotated between the ages of 14 and 25. So I just want to ask the body, how can we accommodate incoming freshmen? And just because we generalize that age 16 would be a little bit more competent for them to represent their constituents in this body, how can we also make sure that we're not just excluding those in the freshman classes that are competent enough to at least be involved with the government process to represent their constituencies. So I want to know, how can we address that in this subsection?
Is that amendment or is that just abroad?
Okay. Then to present an amendment, I would like to make sure that I want to amend at the age of 16 to read who's attained the age of 15. That's amending the age category to 15.
Okay. Representative Hills has presented an amendment. Are there any speakers on the amendment? Representative Wang, you're recognized.
We can make it just a freshman in high school, at least a freshman in high school. Yeah, 14 then. No, not an age limit, just at least a freshman in high school.
So you rather not have a specific age, just
Yes.
general from freshman and up?
Yes, just, yeah, categorizing it.
Okay. So that would be a different amendment then? That's not an amendment to his
Yes,
amendment?
amendment is his
He said it's amendment to his amendment. Okay. Representative Hills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the representative previously that spoke. I want to withdraw my previous amendment, and I will go ahead and state for the record that I will support Representative Wang's amendment.
Okay, let's first go to yours. There's a motion to repeal Representative Hill's amendment. Are there any objections? It is taken away. Now move on to Representative Wang's amendment, which is to scratch out the line that says, who has not attained the age of 16 years, to read, who has not attained, what would you say, freshman category or level of a freshman in high school. Does that fit, Representative Wang? Yes. Okay. And would like me to repeat the amendment of Representative Wang's amendment? Or sit in the youth legislature who is not enrolled in a freshman, who is not enrolled in high school at the freshman level. That's beginning. Okay? So now we move on to Representative Wang's amendment. All those in favor, please do so by raising your right hand. Oh, I'm very sorry for that, yes. Representative Kinga, you're recognized. I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to ask to Representative Wang, who proposed this amendment, the purpose for why we're including the freshmen. Is it just to be inclusive of that category of youth?
Representative Wang, you're recognized.
Yes, just to be inclusive. So it's just the categorizing it, just at least a high school and above.
No objections to high school and above. Thinking about this amendment, maybe we can word it differently so that we can be more clear, because it's really up for interpretation. When we say freshman, it could be freshman level at college. And then, you know, of course, they're still eligible, but we need to be specific in our legislative writing so that there's no room for confusion. One of my concerns, though, being a part of the Youth Congress for, I guess, since the 26th, and currently we're at our 28th, so about 5 years, we're looking at how much we're seeing participation from individuals in that age group. Granted, during your freshman time, that's one of the most amazing times during your high school career. I mean, that's when you're new to everything. You kind of want to experience it all. But you're still iffy on how you can get involved and if you get involved. My problem is just worried if we're going to recruit representatives who may not be ready yet to take on this responsibility. So I think if we could think about whether this amendment would be just to the bill. I think having it at 16 was good enough, seeing as if with participation, most of the representatives who do come out are those who are responsible enough and take the time to show up for their commitment. 16 would be a great age for me, speaking from experience. And I'm open to the amendment. I just want to hear whether for some reason they agree with me or not. And if they do, maybe they can hear me out and see if we could consider otherwise, whether including freshmen would be the best choice for this.
Thank you, Representative Kinga. Are there any other speakers? Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to say, with including those as freshmen, 14 and 15, I know the bill states 16, we're not hindering them in any way to participate or get involved with the legislative or democratic process, as we do include, as the previous amendment that passed, presidents of the student body are allowed to act as ex officio non-voting members within session. So if that freshman or sophomore is a president or gets involved in their student body, they do have other means to participate in the Guam Youth Congress, as getting involved in, you know, their SUGO or SBA and getting involved through there. So I think I agree with Representative Kinga, and I would like to stick to the age of 16 as experience. And we are not hindering those 14 and 15 to getting involved, as they could be with their student body association or their student council and asking for their president if they would like to have their input in the youth congress. It would give them a better way to get involved with their student body, as really pressing their president to address their issues with us. Thank you.
Are there any speakers on the amendment? There being none, we now move on to vote on Representative Wang's amendment, which is to scratch out again the second line of the subsection to read, or sit in the youth legislature who is not enrolled in the freshman level of high school. Would Representative Wang like to work on the wordings on that? All those in favor of Representative Wang's amendment, please do so by raising your right hand. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Wang's motion does not pass.
Representative Wang's amendment does not pass. Now we're still on subsection 7104. Representative Booty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce an amendment that would say that students at a high school level and even at a college level, that they must at least have a GPA average of, I believe, 2.5. What's a C average? 2.5? 2.5. Is that way, I feel that especially if you are in Youth Congress, you should be setting an example to your fellow classmates. So in that way that we can try and keep like a certain, like, well, not necessarily standard, but that you will have students in Youth Congress and youth that can illustrate to other students that this is what you can get by trying hard. Yeah. So essentially, I'd like to amend it so that students with a 2.5 GPA average are only, or no, students that do not have a 2.5 GPA average are not eligible for Youth Congress. Thank you.
So your amendment is to read students who have not attained, again, just to clarify, is that for both high school and college, or just strictly people in
Yes,
higher
for both.
education? For both? So students who have not attained the grade point average of 2.5 in both the high school, is that correct? In both high school and higher education level. Are there any speakers on Representative Booty's amendment? Representative Kanga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could, I would second and third and fourth Booty's amendment. I think school should be a priority for all our students, and being as if they show that they're still great with their studies, then it wouldn't be a problem. Maybe we can include where they would certify that, like before they turn in their election packet, that they submit that with a copy of their unofficial transcript to verify that they have met the 2.5 requirement as per the Booty amendment. But I would like to encourage all my colleagues to support the Booty amendment, and I will too.
Representative Booty, if it's all right if I add to your amendment, making it a section, placing into a second section of B, would that be fine with you?
Feel free.
Okay. So on my amendment to place Representative Booty's amendment as a subsection, as a section B, everybody please do so by raising your right hand. Oh yes, Representative Fields, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. My question is actually to the author, and I do find that his amendment is some sort of way to bring in collectively other students to participate in education. But as our Vice Speaker had stated, I listened closely that ex officio members will be the president of the class councils. Am I correct?
Or it's appointed.
Or appointed, okay.
That's what I
So
said.
those individuals that run for class council or SGA in the high school level, I want to know, I'm a little bit confused because when I was back in high school, I did run for vice president of the sophomore class council, and I did end up winning. But if I can recollect clearly that there was also a stipulation that allowed if you were going to run, you also had to have a GPA average. I'm not too sure if it was 2.0 or 2.5 because even at UOG, in order to stay at UOG, you have to have a 2.0. So to run for class council, I just want to make sure that when you run for a student council and becoming a president or vice president, that if it's 2.0 or 2.5, because we're stipulating 2.5, what if for them to run for class council, they have to have a 2.0? So I just want to make sure we clarify that so we don't step over stones on that particular issue. So I just want to make sure that his amendment, my question was, is to run for class council, and for those people who are president, vice president, or appointed, are ex officio members into the Youth Congress, are they 2.0 qualified, or is it 2.5?
Representative Kenya, would you like? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Great point by the former speaker, Mr. Hills. And maybe to clarify the issue for this body, we can say, based on Representative Booty's amendment, that the requirement to be a part of this organization would be 2.5. Irregardless if it's a 2.0, 1.5 even, I'm not sure if they do 1.5, that's too low. Right, that's failing. So if we say that to be a part of council, that's the school's discretion to make that guideline. The same as it is this Congress's discretion to make a guideline for its members. And I support fully the 2.5 stipulation by Representative Booty.
Vice Speaker Senior, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for clarification, our 2.5 GPA requirement would be for voting members, not ex officio members. And the ex officio members, as the presidents of the student bodies of the high schools, are allowed to have any GPA that their school requires. I think that would be a better, or I would like to clarify that if Representative Booty's amendment is just towards the voting members. Thank you.
It is. I think for verbiage with the amendment, we should scratch out students and place members, and replace it with members, representatives. Or those would be youth senators, sorry. Is that fine with you, Representative Booty? Vice Speaker Senior, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And another, for clarification, under section 7104, no person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator. That's section A, and then section B would be the GPA requirement, correct? Okay, thank you.
Representative Booty, you're recognized. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Session is now called back to order. Now we are back to Representative Booty's amendment. You are still recognized. You just did earlier. We're talking about your amendment, whereas youth senators who have not attained the GPA of 2.5 in both the high school and higher education level. Okay, so are there any other speakers on Representative Booty's amendment? There being none, now we vote. All those in favor of Representative Booty's amendment, which is to read, youth senators who have not attained the grade point average of 2.5 in both the high school and higher education level. All those in favor, please do so by raising your right hand. Representative Booty's amendment unanimously passes. Now we are still on subsection 7104 on eligibility of representatives and electorate. Representative Hills, you are recognized.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the recess, which has allowed members of us to recollect our positions and to discuss the subsection further. I want to go ahead and reintroduce an amendment into subsection 7104, item A. That would be item A, considered where the eligibility, because there was an item B that was created Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Item A on that subsection, no person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator or sit in the youth legislature who has attained, and the amendment is to read, who has, youth legislature, who has not attained freshman level, age 15, of all high schools on the island of Guam.
Representative Kanga, you're recognized.
Just information to the author of the amendment. I guess this had happened before he had come in, Representative Hills, but that was previously introduced by Representative Wang, and part of rules, the motion had been introduced but failed. So we can entertain any other motion, we just can't entertain the motion in regards to who's eligible to be a member, which stands at 16.
I was just about to say that. I did. Representative Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the previous speaker of my colleague from Agate to allow me to understand that the rules says that any previous amendment, and I do understand very well that the amendment by my colleague, Representative Wang, had stated that any freshman in the high school level, but however, if you recall in the record that I withdrew my previous motion to amend to the age of 15, my amendment now does not just state freshman, but also the age of 15, which does not make the amendment any less technical as the previous amendment because of the verbiage to add in the age, which also ties the freshman level. But he is correct, and the rules does state that any motion or amendment with that verbiage, which was the freshman level, would not be entertained again. However, I withdrew my previous amendment of the age amendment, but now I'm adding in as a joint to the previous amendment, which does not make it the same amendment.
Mr. Speaker, if I could, the point I was trying to get across was not whether it was a technicality and you added something to your amendment. Irregardless, if it has to deal with the eligibility to be a member, the body had spoken and have voted that they would retain the 16. So unless your amendment would be in any other form that doesn't touch the age of 16, then it would be permissible. So in other words, 16 stays, but if you would like to change it for those eligible to vote, we can entertain that motion.
That was a detailed thing, Representative Hills, that it already passed that we're leaving the age at 16. So.
Then, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a motion notwithstanding House rules to allow the body with a majority vote to go back into discussing that particular section, which allows us to go back and discuss that section. And it has happened in the Guam legislature, and it has done so in regards to the bond borrowing bill, where they have over and over failed to pass, but they still reconsidered discussing it. And I want to ask, notwithstanding House rules, that the body allow us through majority vote to rediscuss that particular verbiage.
We will take a 2-minute break. Session is now called back to order. On Representative Hill's motion, you are overruled. Representative Booty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce an amendment. As of now, the bill currently states that only people 16 years old and older are eligible to vote for a representative in their village. I'd like to amend that so that residents of the village who are enrolled in a school, so odds on at least 14 years old and older, are eligible to vote. Not necessarily run for Youth Congress, but they are able to have their voice heard and vote for their representative. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, just to clarify, Representative Booty, your amendment is to state people who are eligible to vote must be of the age of 14
and enrolled and a resident of that village
and a resident of that village. So again, a person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator who has attained the age of 14 and is enrolled in a high school or higher level education establishment.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on Representative Booty's amendment? Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to make the wording a little more simple, maybe we can word it in section A or subsection A in section 7104 to read, no person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator under the age of 14.
I'm sorry, Vice Speaker Sini, that'll be section B if you're proposing.
Isn't section B the GPA minimum requirement of 2.5?
Oh, yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Please go ahead, you may continue.
In subsection A, for Booty's amendment, we can just simply word it a little easier, and we can make it to say, no person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator under the age of 14, and no person shall be eligible to sit in the youth legislature who has not attained the age of 16, or who will be 25 prior to the expiration of the term. So that'll just make it simpler if Representative Booty would be okay with.
I'm sorry, Vice Speaker, so you could just repeat that. No person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator who has not attained
or who are under the
age
of 14. And no person shall be eligible to sit in the youth legislature who has not attained the age of 16.
Under the age of 14 and shall not sit as a member.
And shall not be eligible to sit in the youth legislature who has not attained the age of 16.
Will not be able to sit as a member who has not attained the age of 16.
Yes. Representative Booty, is the wording okay? Okay. Just, thank you.
Okay, so Representative Booty's amendment has been amended to read, no person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator who is under the age of 14 and shall not be eligible to sit as a member who has not attained the age of 16. Is that correct, Representative Booty? Is that okay? So now, are there any speakers on Representative Booty's amendment? Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to ask all my colleagues to support Representative Booty's amendment. He found out a great way to give a voice to those 14 and 15, and they will be allowed to vote who represent them. So I thank Mr. Representative Booty for bringing up this amendment, and I hope everyone else will support it. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on Representative Booty's amendment? There being none, we now move to Representative Booty's amendment for voting. Representative Booty's amendment is to read again, no person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator under the age of 14 and shall not be eligible to sit as a member who has not attained the age of 16. All those in favor of Representative Booty's amendment, please do so by raising your right hand. Representative Booty's amendment unanimously passes. Now we are still at subsection 7104 on eligibility of representatives and electorate. Are there any other speakers on this subsection? There being none, we move on. Subsection 7105, vacancies. In case of a vacancy occurring 1 year prior to the next general election, because a member can no longer qualify to represent the entity from which the member is elected, the president of the University of Guam and the president of the Guam Community College at which the student member attends, or the municipal mayors of the municipality in which the member resides, shall call for a special election to be held on the third Monday in October preceding the next general election for the youth legislature. Are there any other speakers on this subsection? Representative Kenga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could, to simplify the vacancies section, maybe if we could talk about that in such case that vacancy shall occur, that the Youth Guam Legislature shall adopt its rules in terms of filling the vacancy. So the members of the Youth Guam Legislature, so the body or the Congress currently shall decide its own rules and procedures in terms of filling such vacancies. With respect to our Member and Organization Affairs Committee as established by last session.
Just to clarify, Representative King, is that to simplify what already is written, or you're making a subsection?
Correct. It's to eliminate the call for special election, because special elections require a lot more, especially in terms of coordinating with the schools. So I think in order to pull away from that, since we have the means to, we can allow for, if in the event there is such a vacancy, that the Congress adopt its rules and policies and its terms to filling that vacancy.
Okay, would you like to repeat what exactly you would like it to say?
Okay, in case such vacancy shall occur, the Guam Legislature shall adopt its own rules and policies as to the proper procedure in which to fill the vacancy.
Again, so to read, your amendment is to say, in case a vacancy shall occur, the Guam Youth Legislature shall adopt its own rules and policies in filling in such a vacancy.
Right. And that maybe such vacancy shall go through the Guam Youth Congress's organization and Member Affairs Committee.
Shall go through the Guam Youth Legislature's
Organization and Member Affairs Committee. Standing committee.
organization and member affairs. Okay, are there any speakers on Representative Kenga's amendment? Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Representative Kinga, for bringing up this amendment. It would clear the wordiness of Section 7105 referring to vacancies, and his amendment also gives authority to the newly established Member and Organization Affairs Committee, which the committee was established to address such things as vacancies and such. So I thank Mr. Kinga for bringing up the amendment, and I hope my fellow colleagues would support it. Thank you.
I would like to make an amendment to the amendment. In doing so, I would like to make the amendment on saying such people for nomination must receive a letter of authorization or support from the president of the University of Guam or the president of the Guam Community College or the municipal mayor of the municipality in which the member resides. That is my amendment to the amendment. Okay, so now we will vote on my amendment to the amendment, which is again to read, any such members up for nomination must receive a letter from the president of the University of Guam or the president of the Guam Community College or the municipal mayor of the municipality in which the member resides. All those in favor of my amendment, please do so by raising your right hand. Okay, my amendment passes. Now on to Representative Kenga's amendment, which is to read, in case such a vacancy shall occur, the Guam Youth Legislature shall adopt its own rules and policies in filling in a vacancy. Such a vacancy shall go through the Guam Youth Legislature's Organization and Member Affairs Committee. All those in favor of Representative Kenga's amendment, please do so by raising your right hand. Representative Kenga's amendment unanimously passes. Are there any other speakers in subsection 7105 pertaining to vacancies? There being none, we move on. Subsection 7106, relative to sessions. Regular sessions of the Youth Legislature shall be held each third Saturday of the year, exclusive of holidays, commencing the third Saturday in November, and shall continue for 1 calendar year. Sessions shall be held in the Legislative Chamber of the Guam Legislature. So essentially, this whole section is saying we're moving back the term of a member to 1 year. Are there any speakers on this section? There being none, we move on. Subsection 7101, relative to elections. General election of the Youth Legislature shall be held on the third Monday in November, commencing November 2012, and every 1 year thereafter. The election for all Youth Legislature seats shall be conducted by the office of the Chairperson of the Committee on Youth of the Legislatura en Guam. Each voter shall be entitled to vote by private ballots for the members of candidates allotted their school or municipalities in which they officially enrolled or officially reside. Eligible electorate may vote in both the electoral and municipal district elections. Candidates of elections may run as members of political parties or independents as such entities. Candidates may have received a petition from an eligible youth electorate of at least 50 signatures. Names of candidates on ballots shall appear as provided in section 7105 of Title 3 of Guam Code, annotated. It shall be the responsibility of the office of the Chairperson of the Committee on Youth of the Legislatura en Guam to provide forms for petitions, ballots, and tally sheets necessary, the ballot boxes, and personnel to supervise the election count and tally the ballots. Elections shall take place at polling sites around the island to be designated by the Chairperson of the Committee on Youth. The elections shall be advertised to the general public for a period starting 5 days before the actual election, with information on names of eligible candidates for their respective school or municipal district seats, together with polling sites and polling times. Results of the election will be certified by the Chairperson of the Committee on Youth, Iwi Legislatura en Guam, as appropriate within 3 days after the election of the Secretary of the Guam Legislature, who shall verify the results and certify the election of members of the Youth Legislature. Any disputes resulting from the election shall be resolved by the Chairman of the Judiciary Committee of the Legislatura en Guam. Are there any speakers on this subsection? There being none, we move on. Term of office. Members of the Youth Legislature shall be elected for a 1-year term, with the exception of a member who is elected on special election, the term of which will expire on the next general election of the Youth Legislature. Are there any speakers on this section? Duties. The Youth Legislature shall be the judge of selection and qualifications of its own members. It shall choose from its members its own officers, its rules, and procedure, not inconsistent with its ties of the chapter of the rules of the Guam Legislature. The quorum of the Youth Legislature shall equal 1/2 of its elective membership plus 1. No bill shall be considered passed unless the majority of its members present and voting indicate by an affirmative vote their desire to pass. Are there any speakers on this section? There being none, we move on. Operations. The Committee on Youth of the Legislatura en Guam may provide staff services to the Youth Legislature. The Youth Legislature is authorized to employ on a part-time basis consisting of an administrative officer and/or legal secretary subject to the availability of funds. The Youth Legislature shall first consider utilizing the staff of the Chairman of the Committee on Youth in the Legislatura en Guam before hiring necessary personnel. Representative Manabusin, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, please, we recognize the execution of Representative Kenga for the session.
You may do so. Any speakers on this subsection of operations? There being none, we move on. Compensation. Senators of the Youth Legislature shall be compensated at the rate of $75 for each regularly, monthly, or special session they attend. Are there any speakers on this section? There being none, we move on. Last section, the Excellence in Youth Leadership Award. The Guam Youth Legislature shall have the authority on a quarterly basis to present the Excellence in Youth Leadership Award. The Speaker of the Guam Youth Legislature, in conjunction with the Chairman of the Committee on Rules of the Youth Legislature, the Executive Director of the Legislatura ng Guahan, and the Administrative Officer of the Youth Legislature, shall solicit proposals for the design of the award and shall follow the normal government procurement process. Upon preliminary selection of the design by the Youth Legislature Speaker, Youth Legislature Rules Committee Chair, the Legislatura ng Guahan's Executive Director, and the Administrative Officer of the Youth Legislature, the Youth Legislature as a whole will then vote on whether to accept the design. Are there any speakers on this section? Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to, for the section referring to the Excellence in Youth Leadership Award, Representative Ken Cooper did pass a resolution, which unanimously passed within our body, to recognize the award, to award it in its tomorrow terms. And he did change a few of the wordings, so we can amend that section referring to the Youth Leadership Award in respect to the previous resolution that passed with Representative Cooper's resolution. Thank you.
Would you like to adopt that as your amendment? Or would you?
Yes, as an amendment to the bill, as we need to respect the resolution that already passed.
I'm just going to summarize what the resolution said. Was it just to present the award in Chamorro translation? Is that correct? Was that what?
As I can recall, that's one of the major changes, but because this resolution passed several months ago, I'm not sure exactly on the specifics and the details which he changed, but all I remember is it did pass within the body. Maybe, so we would not have to vote, or yes, we would have to vote on amending it, or we have no choice because it already passed, so it's already recognized.
But because this is a whole reorganization of this establishment, any rules or things that were done previously in regards to these new rules being added, I don't think it sustains.
So then I would make an amendment. I would like to propose an amendment recognizing
to adopt Representative Cooper's
yes, to adopt
resolution.
Representative Cooper's
Okay.
resolution. Thank you.
Are there any speakers on Vice Speaker Orsini's amendment? There being none, we now move to Vice Speaker Orsini's for a vote. All those in favor of Vice Speaker Orsini's amendment to adopt Representative Cooper's resolution, please do so by raising your right hand. Vice Speaker Orsini's amendment unanimously passes. Are there any other speakers on this subsection of the Excellence in Youth Leadership Award? There being none, we move on to the very last one. Process and regulation. The criteria for selecting awardees to receive the Excellence in Youth Leadership Award shall be residents of Guam under the age of 27 years and over the age of 14 years, who have shown exceptional leadership qualities and who have made substantial contributions to the youth of Guam. Such a nominee must have resided in Guam for a period of 5 or more years. A person may be nominated either by having a youth community organization submit a nomination letter, accompanied by a history of the nominee's community contributions, or by a senator of the Guam Youth Legislature who shall submit a nomination letter to the youth speaker. Accompanied by a history of the nominee's community contributions. Should the youth speaker himself wish to nominate an individual, he shall submit his nomination letter to the chairperson of the Committee on Rules of the Youth Legislature. The Youth Legislature shall then vote at a special or regular session with a simple majority necessary to issue the Excellence in Youth Leadership Award. The Secretary of the Legislature of the Guam Youth Legislature shall be responsible for creating and maintaining a list of persons who have been given the award. No recipient may be awarded more than once. The Youth Legislature shall award no more than 3 awards per quarter and no more than 12 awards per year. Are there any speakers on this subsection? There being none, Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to make an amendment to this section with the term excellence in youth leadership to also adopt Representative Ken Cooper's resolution to recognize it in its tomorrow terms. Thank you.
Yeah, it is already reflected. No, because that I think Representative Cooper's resolution was on the message when it's written in like the formal way it should be in its tomorrow translation. But this is simply just speaking of how a person's nominated or being put up. Oh, just the wording to be put into tomorrow. Are you saying wording of the title of Excellence in Youth Leadership Award, or is it when somebody submits a nomination letter?
In this section, like on line 26,
Mm-hmm.
because my previous amendment was only to that section, I didn't say it's the whole bill. So just for line 12 in this section, line 26, and yes, line 12.
So on Vice Speaker Sini's amendment to have line 12 and line 26, and all those pertaining to the Excellence in Youth Leadership Award shall be adopted by Representative Cooper's resolution to have everything translated in tomorrow. Are there any speakers on Vice Speaker Sini's amendment? There being none, now to vote on Vice Speaker Sini's amendment. All those in favor, please do so by raising your right hand. Vice Speaker Sini's amendment unanimously passes. In doing so, we have reached the last subsection of the bill. Is there a motion to place Bill number 22 into the third reading file? We can introduce an amendment? I'm sorry. What section is that?
7103 membership. It currently reads that the youth legislature shall be composed of not to exceed 25 members. Just out of curiosity, in the event that I'm not maybe you've already done the numbers, but I haven't done them yet. But in the event that, let's say, a village with more than 10,000 people, Dedido, Tamuning, Jigo, were to elect 3 members, but a village with less than 5,000 people, Aganya Heights might be one, Momototo Maiti might be another. And let's say that it comes to the point where we have reached 25 youth senators. The people that essentially got voted, but the 26th member, what would happen to that person? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, I do understand that.
And 'cause I feel that it would be unfair that the person has worked hard to get elected to that position.
Necessarily with the maximum number, it should be accountable for actually how many altogether, just for future clarification. Even though Momototo might take as an example, would never, let's say again, the population would never reach more than 5,000. But yet that substantial number in knowing that they're still allowed to have 3, but then currently they only can have 1. You know what I'm saying? So that maximum number is still supposed to be preceded
it's already included. It's already for Guam. How many villages does Guam have?
Guam has 9 villages.
9 villages.
So if you like to count, so what's
9, 3,
9
27.
times?
So it would be 27 plus the UOG, the 2 from UOG plus the single GCC representative then, right?
So that would place then at 30.
30.
Would you like to make an amendment to correct that? To
And
scratch
then
it?
just another thing, because we were talking about ex officio members, so then they technically would not be a part of the youth legislature then, right? They'd merely be allowed to introduce, they would not have the title of youth senator.
No.
So then we don't need to.
No, you don't count
Okay,
them.
then I'd like to make an amendment to make it 30. To make the maximum amount of youth
30.
senators to not exceed 30 youth senators. Thank you.
Okay. On Representative Booty's amendment, which is to scratch out 25 members to correct it to 30 members, are there any speakers on that amendment? There being none, now we move to vote on Representative Booty's amendment, again, to scratch out 25 members. The maximum number of members in the Guam Youth Legislature shall not exceed 30 members to be read. All those in favor of Representative Booty's amendment, please do so by raising your right hand. Representative Booty's amendment unanimously passes. Are there any other speakers on any parts of this bill? There being none, is there a motion to place Bill number 22 into the third reading file for voting at? Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Make a motion to move Bill number 22 into the third reading file. Thank
Any objections? Representative Booty, you're recognized.
I feel that since this is quite a large bill and this will influence the future of the Guam Youth Congress definitely for the years to come, and I feel that especially with the numbers we have now, it wouldn't allow other Senate Youth Congress representatives to have their voice be heard. I mean, granted, they knew that there was session today, and we've been discussing this for 3 sessions now. But I just feel, especially for voting, we should have more representatives here.
Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank Mr. Booty for his concern with the other representatives, although we should move into voting because this is a special emergency session, time was given, and if a representative is not here, they cannot vote. You're here, you have the privilege to vote. If you're not, then you don't. It's up to you where your priorities are. So if you're not here, you can't vote. That's simple as that. And as he did mention, we have been discussing this for more than 3, 4, 5 sessions. So those who aren't here, the representatives aren't here, they had their chance to have their input. They had their chance to speak up and be heard. And they have other means to contact those who will be attending through email. As I did state to representatives who informed me that they wouldn't be here, I told them if they like to address their issues, they can send a mass email to other representatives via email. So we should move to voting. If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we should just take that initiative as we're all here already. We called session. And if we're not going to vote on a bill, why do we call session? So I just like to have my motion heard to place in third reading file and vote. Thank you.
Representative Booty, would you like to still speak on the matter?
I still feel strongly that we should put it back into committee just for this session and allow other Congress people representatives to come to session. I mean, I understand Representative Orsini's statement that this was, of course, we've been discussing this for 4 sessions, three or four sessions. People have had the opportunity to state what they wanted to say, but I just feel strongly that we shouldn't vote without even a majority of the high schools represented.
Representative Manabusin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I back up our Vice Speaker only because of the fact that, yes, it is a special session. People did have time to vote. We all have other priorities that we need to take care of. Unfortunately, we are all here because we know where our main priority is. We called a special session for a reason, and we do have quorum to vote on this bill. And with us having quorum, I think we need to vote because we are not here wasting our time. We are here in a special session called to move things on with Youth Congress and pass things. and this is the only thing that was on agenda. So if we're gonna postpone this because other representatives couldn't make it, like Representative Orsini said, they could have emailed any one of us who could attend on their addressing of this bill. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on the matter? Like take a 2-minute break. Session is now called back to order. Representative Booty, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to withdraw my earlier objection. Vice Speaker Orsini and Representative Manabusan presented very valid points. So,
Okay.
thank you.
So back on Vice Speaker Orsini's motion to place Bill number 22 in the third reading file. Are there still any other objections? There being none, we now move to the third reading file. Mr. Secretary, could you please lead us in a roll call vote?
Let it be clear that we are voting on Bill number 22 relative to the reorganization. Representative Bourgeois.
Here.
Let it clarify that we are voting.
No.
Representative Booty.
Pass.
Representative Uriarte. Representative Jacosalem. Representative Jimenez. Representative Katsura. Representative Cooper. Representative Lanuza. Representative Manibusan. I do pass. Speaker Orsini.
Hungan.
Vice Speaker Orsini.
Hungan.
Representative Kanata.
Again.
Representative Quinley. Representative Kittlegot. Representative B. Rubio. Representative K. Rubio. Representative Salalila. Representative Santos. Representative Sevilla. Representative Shelton. Representative Shin. Representative Wang.
Pass.
Representative Kanga was excused. Representative Sabetti.
No.
Representative Gill.
No.
Representative Hills.
No.
Speaker, the bill passes with 6 voting yea.
Oh wait, sorry, still back to Representative Booty and Representative Wang who've been passing. No. They still have passed, so you have to go back to them, Mr. Secretary. They're allotted 3 passes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did 1 already. So you have to go back.
Wait, so
You have to ask them again what. Oh yeah, you passed too.
no, I said yes. Yes. Oh, I'm very sorry. I thought you all said yes. Okay. So Representative Booty.
Pass.
Representative Wang.
Pass.
Mr. Speaker, let it be known that.
I'm sorry, one more.
Okay.
One more round.
Man. Okay. Representative Booty.
Yes.
Representative Wang.
Pass.
That's a no for him. That's a no for Representative Wang.
Okay. So, Mr. Speaker, let it be known that this bill passes with Representative Booty? Or did he say, wait? Okay. Revoting sheet for yeas was Representative Booty. Okay. Myself, Representative Anibusen, Speaker Orsini, Vice Speaker Orsini, Representative Kanata, and then Representative Wang, right?
No, that's a no.
So-
We
Okay.
passed them.
Mr. Speaker, bill number 22 is not passed.
Bill number 22 does not pass. We now move on to the next section. Brief extension of remarks. Mr. Secretary, please note that Representative Bourgeois is leaving early. I'd like to say thank you again to all of you, my colleagues, for attending this session. I know, again, we all have other obligations and things to do, but I thank you for your diligence and perseverance in today's session, and I do, let's continue this some more. Are there any other extension of remarks anybody else would like to say? Next, announcements. Are there any announcements? Representative Booty, you're recognized.
I'd like to invite everyone to come watch Southern play St. John's today at GFA Field. It's at Dedito, starts at 6. Go Knights!
Representative Hills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also like to extend an invitation to the body for December 16th. I will be at GW High School at 8:45 in the morning. We will be doing an anti-bullying presentation. I also have as guest speakers professional martial arts fighters Alex Castro, Trevor Jones, and Baby Joe Time and Glow, who will be speaking to the students in the cafeteria. So if you're interested, please join me. And also an additional, I will be there at the game at 6:30 GFA Field, and go Dolphins, undefeated.
Representative Kanata, you're recognized.
The Phoenix Center, First Ladies is having a charity event for the homeless children, and it's at 8 p.m. at the Phoenix Center. So join me. Thank you.
Vice Speaker Orsini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to make a motion to adjourn if we're at that section already.
I'm sorry, Vice Speaker Orsini, before we do that, Mr. Secretary, please lead us in a second roll call vote. Second roll call for attendance.
Thank you. Okay, so we have Representative Bourgeois, who was excused. Representative Booty.
Esteguizu.
Representative Iriarty. Representative Jacosalem. Representative Jimenez. Representative Katsura. Representative Cooper. Representative Lanuza. Representative Manibusan, present. Speaker Orsini.
Esteguizo.
Vice Speaker Orsini.
Esteguizo.
Representative Kanata. Representative Quinley. Representative Kittlegwa. Representative B. Rubio. Representative K. Rubio. Representative Salilai. Representative Santos. Representative Sevilla. Representative Shelton. Representative Shin. Representative Wang.
Present.
Representative Kengo was excused. Representative Saberi. Representative Gill. Representative Hills.
On Vice Speaker Orsini's motion for adjournment, are there any objections? Session is adjourned at 12:22 p.m.